Here we're going to take a look at filing 1040A. And in this case, the 1040A is not listed on here. And so we'll click on Forms and Pubs, find all current forms and pubs, and then we can put in 1040A. And there is our form ready to go. We also saw that the instructions came up there, which you would need the instructions for being able to look up the tax table when it comes time to doing the tax. Okay, our information for this particular return is also on shared files, and it's Charles and Deneen Chandler. And we have 2 pages of information. We have a little paragraph. We also have some interest, and Charles and Deneen each have a W-2. Okay? Now here is their basic information. Charles and Deneen Chandler are married. They want to file a joint return. They have a daughter, Alicia, who is 5 years old and lives with them. And there's her Social Security number. Thomas is a store manager. Deneen is an administrative assistant. They want to contribute to the presidential election campaign. We need to prepare a 1040A. Here is some interest income. Okay, so when we're doing our summary sheet, we're going to get their names, their addresses, their Social Security numbers, and we know that they want to do married filing joint return. They have a daughter who lives with them who's 5 years old, so if we go through the dependency rules, she is a qualifying child, and so they can use her as a dependent. Okay, and so they would be married filing joint with 3 exemptions. 2 personal exemptions for the 2 of them, and 1 dependency exemption for Alicia. Okay? Now the other thing that we have on shared files is the copies of their W-2s, and so we see here Chandler's W-2 and Deneen's W-2. Okay? And so now we can get that information down from box 1, and if we add up Charles' gross wages to Deneen's gross wages, we have $45,800 and $31,000, and that gives us $76,800. Okay, if I add up Charles's federal withholding tax of box 2, the $91.60, along with her federal withholding from box 2, $46.50. If I add those 2 together, I get $13,810 total that they had withheld. I would also put on there the addition of the 1801 and the 982 from their state withholding, although we will not be using that today. You would put that on your summary sheet. We would also check with Charles, with Deneen. Both have a code of DD and how much was withheld from their check to help pay for health insurance. So we know that they were involved with a health insurance policy with their employer. We would have to make sure, did that cover all year? And we would have to make sure that at least one of them also have Alicia on their policy. Okay, and we're gonna assume that yes, one of them did, and we're gonna assume that yes, both of those policies were in effect all year. Okay, but we would otherwise ask them. Okay, so now if we have all this written down on our summary sheet, we're ready to actually fill out the return. Now I'm going to assume that you have already looked at the previous YouTube on filling out a 1040EZ, which includes a lot of the same information, and so I'm not going to spend as much time talking about some of the same things that apply here, such as how to put the names in, the Social Security numbers, etc. Now here we do have a joint return. Now I put Charles in first, and I'm putting in Deneen second. However, that doesn't have to be that way. You could put in Deneen first and Charles second. It doesn't matter. It's just that if Charles is first, he becomes the you and the your. This Social Security, your Social Security has to match your name. So if Charles is listed first, he is the you all the way through the return. And Deneen is listed second, so she would be the spouse all the way through the return. This would be her Social Security. You can't mix these up, okay, and crisscross them. So if Deneen was first, then she would be the you, and her Social Security number would be first. And Charles would be the spouse, and his Social Security number would be under spouse, etc., all the way through the return. He would then be, whenever they talk about spouse, he would be the one they're talking about. So it doesn't matter who's first, but you have to follow through and be consistent throughout the return as to how you do things. Now here, the last name, they would like for you to actually put the last name the same way it is on the Social Security card. Now, if Deneen had never gone to Social Security Administration when she got married and changed her last name to Chandler, then whatever's on her Social Security card is what you should be typing here. If she has a hyphenated last name, and it's on her Social Security card that way, that's what you should be typing here. Okay? Now, she is Chandler on her Social Security card, and I could do one of two things. We can go ahead and type this in, or we could leave it blank, and it will be assumed that it's the same as Charles. Okay, and her Social Security number. All right, we're going to double, triple, quadruple check the Social Security numbers to make sure that we have them right. I'm not going to worry right now about, in the interest of time, about putting the address in, but you would go ahead and put the address in the same way as we did on the 1040EZ. In this case, we were told that both Charles and Deneen do want to do the presidential election campaign, so we would check both of those. They wanted to file married filing jointly, so we would check the box for that filing status. Here's the exemptions. They each get a personal exemption. Neither one of them is claimed by someone else, so we would check each of that. And then we go over here to the right where it says boxes checked on 6A and 6B. How many boxes were checked? Well, we got 2. So we're going to go over here and put a 2. Here's where we have the dependents, and this is where we're going to put Alicia. And then her Social Security number. Now here I have to put in the dash as I go along. We also, oops, forgot my other dash. Okay, I'm also going to double, triple, quadruple check this Social Security number. If it doesn't match this name in the Social Security Administration computer, then this whole return's going to get rejected. Okay? Dependents relationship to you. They want to know not just is this your child, they want to know is this your son, your daughter-in-law, your niece, who is it? So this is their daughter. If the child is under age 17 and qualifies for the child tax credit. Now, typically, Alicia would qualify for the child tax credit. However, we haven't talked about any credits yet, and so I'm going to leave that blank for right now, and later in the semester when we talk about credits, we'll add those credits. Okay? Now over here it says number of children on 6C who either lived with you or didn't live with you because of divorce or some other kind of dependence like maybe your elderly parents. Okay? So this is a qualifying child that lived with Charles and Deneen. And so we have one of them. And so we put one there. And down at the bottom on 6D, the total number of exemptions is 2 plus 1, which is 3. Okay, line 7 is our total wages. This comes from our summary sheet where we added up the 2 W-2s. So that was $76,800. Line 8A is our taxable interest from the 1099 INT. It says attach Schedule B if required. That's if the interest is $1,500 or more, we have to fill out a Schedule B. We'll learn more about that in Chapter 2. We don't have that problem here. It's less than $1,500, and so we just put the number on here, and we do not need a Schedule B. Okay? We don't have any of these other kinds of incomes. We'll learn more about these in Chapter 2, and so we can just go all the way down to line 15. It says add lines 7 through 14B on the far right column. This means this column over here at the right. We're not adding anything that's in here in the middle. Okay, just over to the right. So the 76,800 plus the 300. And that would be 77,100. Here are a few adjustments that are allowed on the 1040A. It so happens that Charles and Deneen don't have any of these. We will talk more about adjustments when we get to the next chapter. And so there's none here. We're going to leave that whole section blank. We'll go down to line 21. Subtract 20 from 15. This is your adjusted gross income. So for us, that'll be the same number. Okay, just like with the 1040EZ, any line where we don't have anything is left blank. Notice I don't have bunches of zeros or dashes or anything. Just leave the line blank if you're not using it. Okay, now I'm going on to page 2. The first thing says enter the same thing from line 21, that AGI of 77,100 we're repeating that up at the top of the second page. Line 23, check if you were born before January 22nd of 1950, meaning is either Charles or Deneen 65 or over, or are they blind? And then we say how many boxes are checked, and that's, remember, going to give us an additional standard deduction amount. Well, neither Charles nor Deneen are over 65, and they're not blind, so we don't have any boxes checked. 23B, if you are married filing separate and your spouse itemizes, then you check here. Okay, well, they're not filing separate, so this does not apply to them. We get down to line 24. Remember that we cannot itemize on a 1040A. If Charles and Deneen wanted to itemize their deductions, they need the long form 1040. So they don't have any itemized deductions, so we're just using the standard deduction. I look over here to the left, I find married filing jointly, just down here, 12,400. And that's what's going to go here in line 24. Line 25, subtract 24 from 22. If 24 is more than 22, enter 0. Well, 24 is not more than 22, so I'm not going to have a 0 here. So I'm going to take 77,100 and subtract 12,400. And that gives me 64,700. Line 26, exemptions. Multiply 3950 by the number on line 16. We had 3 exemptions on line 60, and so 3 times 3950 is 11,850. Line 27, subtract 26 from 25. If 26 is more than 25, enter 0. Well, 26 is not more than 25, so I'm not going to put a 0. I'm going to take 25, 64,700, and subtract the 1150, and I get 52,850. Line 28 is the actual tax. And so this is where I need to go to the instruction booklet and look up the tax for $52,850 for married filing jointly. And if you look up that, you will see $7,024. Line 29, excess advance premium tax credit repayment. What this is if they would have gotten health insurance through the healthcare.gov marketplace or through their state marketplace, then they get a form 1095A, and it has some information on there, and it's possible that if the government gave them a bunch of money to help pay for their insurance and they gave them too much money, that they have to repay some of that extra money. Now, the Chandlers here, they had health insurance through their employer, so this does not apply to them. Okay, add lines 28 and 29, so that's still going to be 7024. Then we have a variety of what's called non-refundable credits, including the child tax credit, which they would be allowed to get for Alacia. But in this case, we're saying that for this class, since we haven't talked about credits before, we're going to leave that blank, and we're just going to go on. So we're going to leave all the credit section blank, and we're going to go on to line 37. It says subtract 36 from 30. If 36 is more than 30, enter 0. Okay? We don't need to enter 0, so we enter 7024 minus 0 is 7024. Line 38, healthcare, individual responsibility, full year coverage. If they had coverage all year through their employer or through some other kind of insurance, then you would check this box, and there's no penalty that they have to pay. And so they did have insurance all year for themselves and for Alacia, so we're going to check that box. Add line 39, add lines 37 and 38. This is your total tax. So again, that's 7024. Line 40, federal income tax withheld on the W-2s. So we had added that up and put it on our summary sheet, and that was 13,810. 2014 estimated tax payments. That's mostly for people who are self-employed, and we'll talk about that in the future of the class. Earned income credit. Now, Charles and Deneen, Mike could get an earned income credit. They have a child. It so happens that their AGI, their income is too high, and they would not be able to have an earned income credit because of that. But we will talk about the earned income credit in the future, but they would normally not be able to get that. 42B, non-taxable combat pay election, they don't have that. Additional child tax credit, American Opportunity Credit, net premium tax credit, none of those things apply to them, and we'll talk about credits when we get to chapter 6. Okay? So add lines 40 and all these lines, and so we only had the one thing, 13810. Okay? Now we get down to line 47. If 46 is more than 39, so let's stop and look and see. Here's 46. Is that more than 39? Yes, it is. Okay, so we're going to follow this line. Subtract 39 from 46. So I'm going to take 13,810 minus 7,024, and I get 6,786. So this is the amount that you overpaid. Okay, you had 13,810 taken out of your check and sent to the IRS under your name, but your tax liability is only 7,024. So you overpaid by 67.86. Line 48A. Amount of line 47 you want refunded to you. Well, that seems funny now, doesn't it? Of course, I want all of it refunded to me. However, if you were self-employed, you would owe estimated tax payments, and in that case, you would want some of this refund to be applied to that estimated tax, which is down here on line 49. You would maybe only want some of your refund, or maybe even none of your refund, to be sent to you in a check. You would want to apply it to your next year's estimated tax. However, the Chandlers are not the self-employed. They don't have to worry about estimated tax, and so they, of course, want all of their overpayment as a refund. Okay, so we need to put that down here. Now, again, we talked about Form 8888 back in the 1040EZ video, and we don't need that. If they want their 6786 sent to them is a direct deposit, they will get it a lot quicker, and that's a lot of money. So you would think they would want it quickly. They would put in their banking information here, and it would be direct deposited to them. If their tax was more than what they had withheld from their checks, they would owe money, and that would go here on line 50. If they were self-employed or for some other reason needed to pay estimated taxes and they had not paid them or not paid them on time, they would have a penalty, and that would go on line 51. So we don't need to worry about that line either. Okay? Here's our third-party designee line. It's the same as the 1040EZ. Again, you will not be signing anything in the signature section, but you would go down here to the paid preparer and type your name. And that's how I know. Then you would save this. You would save that, and then you could upload it as your homework assignment. This concludes the 1040A.